Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no copay. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hey everyone, this is a friendly reminder that we are here for entertainment purposes only. We may not even be that entertaining at times, but this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor, check with your healthcare professionals before making any lifestyle changes or medicine changes. What we're talking about is our clinical experience and what we've seen. And so if you really want our advice, you can consult us. You can actually consult me as a doctor, or you can consult my guest and get all your questions answered. But we can't give free medical advice because we can't pay our bills with that, but we can help to educate you a bit and allow you to think a little bit. And always reach out to your medical professional before making any lifestyle changes. Thank you. Oh my goodness, September is upon us. Kids, sorry, you're going to have to go back to school pretty soon if you haven't already. And hopefully some of these great episodes will help keep you going, keep you motivated. But, we have the holidays coming up around the corner. They're going to be here before we think about it. So again, I want to thank my sponsors, Keto Mojo, keto-mojo.com. Great website, great people. They're doing great work in the community. They're doing a ton with education. So if you're looking for a ketone monitor or glucose monitor, they're a great resource. And check out their website. It's amazing. They have so much information, so much good stuff for us to all learn from. Also, of course, Health Code, gethealth.com, GETHLTH.com. Discount code MetHealth through this podcast and for metabolic health. They still have great chocolate and vanilla shakes and vegetarian offerings for those so inclined. But they're doing great work, and they also have a new berberine that a lot of people are raving about that has turmeric in it. So it's right up, what we're looking for our patients for improving metabolic health. So again, thank you for your sponsorship and for bringing these episodes, and thank you for listening. Hello and welcome back to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. I've got an old friend that we've we have a lot of respect for her. She's one of those people that at all the conferences, she's uplifting people and helping people. Dr. JoAnn McManamy. Yes. Welcome. I got it right. Yeah, I know. Tro and I struggled the first time we had you on. And if you have a chance, go back. I think it was episode 210 on Low Carb MD when we first got to meet her, if you want to hear a whole backstory. But tell people who don't know you, I know you have a degree in everything from education to you have this mind that just keeps thirsting for knowledge. I see you at the low carb conferences and you're learning and taking notes and helping people. So let's go all the way back. Tell us what it was like growing up and what got you to where you are now as such an accomplished person.
Well, I'm 77 years old, so a lot got me to where I am right now, but basically I live in the present. But so many things that happened in my past made me ask questions and just keep questioning it. And my life has gotten better. It was actually the significant emotional event of my life happened on October 4th of 2012 when I was delivered against my will into the emergency room at Monroe Regional Hospital in Ocala, Florida. And I had to make a choice. Do I want to live or do I want to die? And I chose to live, which meant really looking at absolutely everything in my life at 65 years old. And prior to that, I never wanted to go to a doctor. I didn't have any doctors and was not on any medication at that point in my life. And they say if you need a cardiologist, most people meet him or her in the emergency room, and that's exactly what happened to me. So 9 days later, I left with a new valve, 3 bypasses, and a year later needed to go in for 2 stents. So that kind of woke me up, and diagnosed with diabetes that same year, and got that under control. I knew I could get that under control, so that's where I started. I got off medication very quickly after I was put on. because I changed my diet to very low carb and didn't know anything about ketones at that point, but I did with what I knew, and then started researching. And now I've been diabetes free for 7 years, no medication. Occasionally it slips out of range when I forget to check what's in something. So for the most part, that's been pretty level at about an A1C of 5.4, 5.5. So that's where I am on diabetes. But then I figured the diabetes was a gateway disease to absolutely everything else. And my arthritis disappeared. My retinopathy in my eyes stopped progressing and have been halted due to a good retinologist for the entire time. He keeps telling himself how good he is for stopping that. But I've done all the work.
Yeah, you've done all the work lifestyle wise, and I've seen that with diabetic retinopathy. You know, that as a matter of fact, funny enough, as you say that, one of my patients, he's a friend of mine, and diabetic retinopathy doesn't improve, and so he said the patient told me that she was annoyed with him because he came in, he took pictures of the back of her eyes and everything, and he left, and he was gone for like 45 minutes. And she's like, I got stuff to do. What's taking them? And he came in and said, I cannot believe this. I'm looking and I double checked and triple checked. And he goes, these are not the same eyes, but you are the same person. He said, I had to go back and research and double check and make sure I wasn't looking at two different people because I can't believe it. Your eyes are perfect in the back now. You know, from where you had this diabetic retinopathy. He goes, I've never, what are you doing? And she told him. And he goes, oh, you're seeing Brian, huh? Okay. Then he called me. He goes, Brian, I'm honestly never seen something like this. So to hear stories like that, like for us docs, we think it's such a miracle because it sounds so ludicrous, actually, you know. So it's amazing. So I'm happy for you too. And I'm curious, going back before you were like up to 65, was health really, it wasn't really a top-notch thing in your brain. You were like studying and learning about all kinds of stuff, but you weren't really taking your health seriously, it sounds like.
I was not taking my health seriously. I worked absolutely long hours. I was up from 6 in the morning to 11 at night, running myself ragged, running here, running there. The root of that, as I later figured out, was my inability to say no. So one of the biggest lessons I've learned now is to say no and put limits on what's not good for me, or doing things for people who are not. Kind of, this goes against you. I don't want to help that guy. And then you go help him. Well, if I don't really care about a person, I don't invest my energy in them. And life has gotten a lot better because of that.
It's hard, and honestly, and I think it's a critical point you're making. You know, and I was the same way, working 18-hour days, trying to help everyone in the world, and I was destroying my health at the same time. So I think you start realizing, okay, I have to make boundaries with family members who maybe not, because I have people that I've talked about low carb keto, and I'll sit there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours explaining it, and then they go off and they eat their cookies and donuts and fast food, and then they a year later when they get diagnosed with diabetes, they go, "Tell me about that stuff again." I was like, you know what? Do your own research because it's hard because I want to help you, but if you're not going to take the reins, like you took the reins on your health, and you go, okay, I'm invested. Like just yesterday, I had a new patient. He's diabetic, and I'm looking at his med list. I was like, okay, like legitimately, 80% of your meds we can get you off. Like not me, but us together. I said, you're invested, we'll get you off. But if you're not invested, he goes, I'm all in, doc. Let's do this thing. So he's drinking orange juice every day and he's eating like the ADA's recommended diet and he's getting on more and more meds. I was like, you know, we can, and I mean, it's exciting when you go, we can, it's not being arrogant. It's saying we can do this because we've done it before. It's not, this is not new. Like your diabetic retinopathy, peripheral neuropathy, things we see getting better. And we go, gosh, darn it. It's just amazing what we can do. But what you're saying is really important is the caregivers are the ones getting the sickest because you invest in everyone else and you never say no and you run yourself exhausted.
I ran myself exhausted. If somebody backed out of a course, I would teach it. And then I started getting older and older, and uh, some of the jobs went away. I couldn't keep up with technology, which still is an issue for me. And I just learned through that what are my true priorities are and what are my really important values that I don't compromise.
And what are those things? What are those important values? What do you value now?
I value growth. I value curiosity and learning. And I'm still working on suspending my judgment because that's the first place I go. As a teacher, a former professor, you go to that and it doesn't serve me at all. And
Tell me about that. Tell me about the judgment part, because that's a huge thing, right? That's
so
hard
it's a
because we,
huge thing. And I had the pleasure of watching Ted Lasso all this year and rerunning some of the
yeah,
and he just said, "Don't judge, be curious."
I think that is so important. And we were talking beforehand, some things that you've been exposed to that you never thought you would based on your background. And you go, oh, these people aren't so bad, or maybe they have a point. And I think that's one of the big take home messages, that the reason one of the reasons I started this podcast was we should be able to question and go, wait, does this make sense to anyone else? And we went through a period, if you question something, you could lose your medical license, you could get taken off of all social media just by saying, hey,
Yeah.
this is weird. I'm seeing this. Is anyone else seeing this? Right. And it's amazing when you can't have a discussion. And that's really critical. This whole thing of misinformation, or the other side's the bad side. And I think, like you said, the best way to overcome prejudice or judging people is sit down and talk to them. Go, why do you believe what you believe?
Talk to them because they are good people and they come to a different conclusion on some things. And I can live with that. I really can. Um, and you shut so much off when you judge on just kind of looking at where did I limit myself? But I'm not beating myself up because that never works. I'm just saying, okay, how can I be better today? That's about what you can do.
Yeah, and we're all fallible. We all have our idiosyncrasies and all those things, and kind of
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at the whole picture is so critical.
It is looking at the whole picture and stepping back and don't see, it made me crazy before. And then that turns into controlling people and me being accused as a diabetic Nazi from one person. Um, well, I wish she did listen to me. So that's all I can say. But you can't force it on other adults.
Well, it's just like anything. It's religion. It's
Yeah.
politics. Is like, okay, here's what I believe. Here's like it's cornering someone in their cubicle and telling them you have to change what you're doing all the time and you're doing the wrong thing. It's so hard because people have to be at that place where they go, I'm not really happy where I'm at. Let me make some changes.
Yeah.
Like you had to do medically. I mean, a lot of people medically, you get into this situation, you go, okay, I got to change what I'm doing. Now you're oblivious to it until it happens to you. Then you go, I just got a triple bypass and a valve change. What do I do to prevent this from happening again?
Hmm. And then I started the search for doctors. Now, I knew nothing except very wise advice from my ex-husband who told me how to pick a doctor. Um, it was only part, what he told me was correct, but it was not the total picture. I had to figure that out for myself. And my first cardiologist, ooh, I stayed with him too long. And second cardiologist knew wouldn't work for me. Third cardiologist went mental on me. Fourth cardiologist was sane but a vegan. And the guy I have now is the best I've ever found.
No, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. That's so important to find someone that you're in tune with. And I find that a lot because the last thing a patient wants to do is try to make their life better. And every doctor they go to says, you're killing yourself. This is the worst thing you could possibly do. You have to be vegan, or you have to have a liquid shake, or and it's hard because people need support and go, okay, you lost 80 pounds. Your diabetes is better. Okay, let's look at this and keep doing what you're doing, right?
Yeah, at least don't get it. It's my lowest standard of a doctor now is, well, at least she isn't going to get in my way.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it would be a lot nicer to have people who can support you on your journey. And that's why for me, I'll support anyone. I don't care if you want to be vegan and you're not having mental health issues and you're not losing all your muscle, and let's do it the
Yeah,
safest, best way, because we all
exactly.
know, I think we can all agree. This is the problem. I think someone says, I'm carnivore, I'm keto, I'm this, I'm that, I'm whatever. But you could be vegan and you could eat Oreos every day and you're not healthy, right? You could be vegan, you could eat vegetables and fruits and you could have some, eggs and you'd be extremely healthy. So I think it's just really meeting people where they are and go, what works for you? If someone hates steak, I'm not going to say, well, you need to be carnivore because that's going to help you. Well, I don't like that food. You got to live your life at some point. It has to be reality, right?
And what's good for some people, they don't have any, if they don't have diabetes, do what you want. But when you have diabetes, there are better choices to make. So anyway, I'm doing what works for me. And occasionally I get a bit off track and I get right back on now. Um, I had food addiction most of my life. Uh, and I still manage that one day at a time.
Yeah, I think making that choice and that's really important too that you say that is because just yesterday someone said that. I know Lane Norton, some of the bigger names out there are saying, look, everything in moderation. Well, if you're addicted, you can't have moderation at some point. If you're addicted to alcohol, I don't say, well, just have a little sip every once in a while. Like once you have that one sip, you go off the rails, or you're smoking, like, oh, every once in a while have a cigarette. Like it doesn't make sense that you would tell people that what they're some people don't have food addiction. They could have a cookie every once in a while or whatever pizza and then have it again in a month and there's no harm no foul type thing. But like what you're saying is if you have it and you go off the rails for 6 months and you gain all your weight back and then you lose your motivation and you get mental and cognition problems too.
You beat yourself up, which is, it's Tro gave an excellent talk at Orlando, Keto Orlando. I Yeah,
Yeah, Tro he's always on. He's always
just so on point about not blaming yourself and it's not your fault and this is what you can do and these are the environmental forces. It's the best talk I've heard him give. And it's you've got to let go of yourself. And it's the shame. It's all of those negative emotions that come in when an addict, such as myself, gets off the trail. And I've been really compliant for a while now. So, but I control my environment. There's not anything in my cupboards that I can't eat.
and what's your why? What is it that but when you get off track that gets you back? Like what do you think about this as okay, I've been off the rails at Christmas or whatever, holidays.
Okay,
Uh
it's when my weight goes above 160 pounds and when my A1C crept up all the way to 5.9. And that was in February. And right now I've got almost, well, 13 of those pounds gone. So I'm in the very low 150s.
and where did you start for people who don't know? Because we didn't even talk about that part of it.
280 pounds.
Yeah. So we haven't even talked about that. We're talking about the health benefits, but losing that much weight, 280, so that's 130 pounds roughly, 125, 130, like
Yeah.
that. Imagine like I went hiking with my wife and I've been rucking a little bit where you put some weights in a backpack and it's 35 pounds. And my wife's like, oh my gosh, 35 pounds. I'm like, people have lost 200 pounds. Like, can imagine carrying that on your back all the time, how much of a stress it is on the body.
Well, it's interesting. With Tro as my doctor, there's no rabbit hole he doesn't go down with me. And last year, it was September of last year, he goes, we got to get you strong. And he said, you have no sense of balance and you can't lift things, you steady yourself. We're going to get you some physical therapy. Best gift he ever gave me. Started with one trainer who I didn't feel was that invested in me getting well. And he kind of spun me off to the gym after the 10-week session, the 10 session. And I didn't succeed at that. And Tro said, we're going to get you more. And I just will complete tomorrow 3 10 sessions. So 30 sessions with a trainer that really is in my face. And he's wonderful. I interpret that as he cares to make me well. And I now know more. So I'm going to be spun off next week. And I anticipate doing a lot better. And I'd like to not start physical therapy again until like after the first of the year. I want to see what I'm capable of doing and resourcing. And of course, I have the coaching of Vic and Brian from Tro's practice, and keep me.
Yeah, two great guys. I mean, Tro has a great team around him. That's amazing. And I think, some of the things you're saying, because you think of your 250, 280 pounds trying to do physical therapy, trying to get off a chair.
Hey, I
And
couldn't get off the couch. Yeah,
yeah,
I drive myself everywhere around the Boston area doing all of these work consulting assignments that didn't appeal to me. Um, Going to London all the time, that assignment appealed to me, so I went readily. But so no, it's learning that sense of discernment and prioritizing. And I have said no so many times in the last 10 years. And basically now I'm getting brazen. Somebody asked me to do something for a club here at the village. I said, no, that's not on my priorities. And it was so easy to say.
yeah, and it's easier than be stuck in there and resent it all the time. It's like you just go, nope, can't do it. It's not going to work in my schedule or whatever. And
No,
it's a hard thing for us.
you don't even have to tell them why.
Does that go back to your childhood, this people pleasing? Like always
Oh,
wanted
oh
to.
yeah. Ah, two alcoholic narcissistic parents. That says it all about the aces, doesn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of us who are caregivers, we've been through, childhood
Yeah.
trauma. And so I've learned so much. That's why I think I remember
Oh,
hearing Tro talking about early childhood trauma and I'm like, come on, man, get over it at some point. And then you look at the data and the research, you go, oh my gosh, it is because it rewires your entire nervous system differently to think everyone's a threat. Even now I see it with kids. I've actually had conversation with, family friends of their kids and said, you're wearing your mask all the time. Are you afraid of getting a certain illness or anything? And they go, no, this is our security now. Like we feel better behind this. It's like separation, and we're what's the word I'm looking for? Anonymous, where people just don't engage as much, and so there's a fear, there's anxiety, and once your brain is wired that way to think everyone else is a vector or everyone
yeah.
else is out to get you,
Hypervigilance. Yep.
hypervigilance. I mean, when you're in that state, it's that fight or flight, and it tells you store fat because you're going to need it later. Something bad's going to happen. So finding your peace at some point is so critically important.
Yeah. So another gift of the weight loss, but this year is been me working on my body. And
And you look fantastic. I mean, people aren't going to like you when they look and you're 77. You look so fantastic. You look, oh, we don't like her anymore because she's so amazing, right?
well,
But
that did
but
happen.
what happened?
That does happen. When you um, get healthy, other people don't want to be around you a lot of times because they don't want to face that they're not getting healthy.
That is such an important thing, and that's why you've had so much success too. Is that we all worry what everyone else thinks. I was telling you in my talk, I was talking about where I was going back and forth between Arizona and California. When I get back to California, my friends go, "Oh my gosh, we haven't seen you for 3 weeks. Let's have a drink. Let's have dinner. Let's have." And you don't want to look like a zealot, but at some point you go, "No, don't." So now I had to, like you said, say no. I had four neighbors invite me to go to happy hour or to go, invite me over to dinner, and they say it's low carb, but it's really not. Once you get there and you realize, oh, it's gluten free or something totally different. And so being able to say no and go, okay, look, this is the path I'm on. We don't want to look like zealots, right? Where you say, well, I can never have a glass of wine. But it's one of those things you have to have that fine balance of being able to say, no, I don't think during the week I'm not going to have a drink. Maybe on Saturday night I will, or whatever it is. As long as obviously you're not addicted and it's a stumbling block for you. But um, you raise so many great points.
Yeah, it's just and then you find, what's wonderful about it is you find your own authenticity. And yeah, yeah, I just kind of do what I want. And it gets that way for me when I go to conferences. I get overwhelmed by all the energy. People think I'm an extrovert. I'm an introvert. And all of a sudden, I'm used
Yeah,
to it.
but it's amazing and people love it because it gives them hope. When you're 77 and you're out hiking and walking and
Yeah.
being able to have energy and focus. I mean, so many of us, especially in the US, they think, well, oh, once you turn 65, I have at least 5 women in my practice who are in their 80s, late 80s, and all of them, their doctor said, just enjoy the rest of your life. Just enjoy it. Eat what you want. You're 72 years old, and now they're, 10 years later, and they're doing great and thriving when they were sick before all the time.
Exactly, because good health feels better than anything else. And, you look at some of the things people are eating and you just go, oh my God, I'd feel so awful if I ate that. If that were the only food around, how could I handle it? So,
I think what happens is you start seeing it for what it is. Rob Sivas, who's one of my favorite guys, even though
oh,
I got to stump him, that was great. Did you hear when I got to stump him at the conference?
yes.
Because I had to research. I'm like, Rob. So people don't know Rob Sivas. He's one of the smartest doctors I've
Oh
ever
my
met.
God.
He knows everything.
Yes.
And I thought, he always asks a question. Everyone sits there and says, I don't even know what you're asking, because he's so smart above everyone else's level. So I asked him what the rarest element on the periodic table was. And he looks at me like, why are you asking that? Is this a trick question? I don't know. Why? What is it? Oxygen. He was just randomly guessing. I'm like, no, it's francium. Francium is something it costs $1 billion to make 100 grams of this stuff. But anyways, it was just funny because I knew, and I said the reason I'm asking you that is there's no question I can stump you on, and I was a little stressed you might know the answer to this one because I just randomly like Googled something to find some random fact, right? But that's how smart he is, and I love about him. He's like you. Last year he was talking very different. This year he changed his tune a little bit. Last year he was talking about how important it is to have a super high protein, low fat. Now he said, no, you need the fat in your diet. And so he's weighed the evidence and looked at it and he made this conclusion and he has more clinical experience than most anyone out there. So I love it when we can reassess like if you would say, this is the way it is, and then I'm never deviating from that. And that's what medicine has become. You can't deviate. You have to say, this is the way you treat this condition and say, well, it's not working. Should we try something different?
You're taught by algorithms.
Algorithm, and you lose your ability to, we could talk about the medical system.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to have an education, Tucker Carlson just interviewed the means, Callie Means and Casey Means,
Oh, wow. What an interview.
talking about metabolic health and what matters
Oh,
and the forces that are at work. And it's hard because most people are afraid to talk about it because there's repercussions when you're governing body and you're saying, wait, they're not doing things right. um, you know, Pierre Corey, who we talked about a little bit, had his board certification, one of the most decorated, best doctors in the world with tons of data and tons of clinical success and publications, all that. Just got stripped of his ABIM certification because they didn't like some of the things he was saying. And a lot of those things are now the standard of care that changed. And he saved a lot of lives. And you go, oh my gosh, it's a scary thing to go against the tide. And doctors want to be in the middle of the pack and just hide in the middle and never be at one end or the other saying, man, we try something different. This isn't working very well.
mm-hmm. Yep. That's been my experience with doctors. I don't go to doctors anymore for nutrition advice. I don't even ask the question.
Yeah, you got some great people around Troy. He has people who are trained coaches and nutritionists and all that. But I think that's such an important thing, and people don't realize one of the two biggest things that Troy and I know for sure, the things that will knock you off track are stress and lack of
Mhm.
support. Because if you're around people like you are at the conference, you get energized because you're around people who are eating the same way you are, and it's easy. But when you're out and people are having their pizza and bread and pasta and big dessert, and you're not doing it, they look at you like you're weird. Like, how could you not eat that?
Well, just
That's
have a little
weird.
piece.
Just
Just
have
have
a little
just have a
piece.
taste.
Just have a taste because that absolves them of guilt. It's just like you don't want to drink by yourself. You want someone else to have a drink with you because if you're drinking and they're not, it's kind of a weird situation, right? But surrounding ourselves with people who are like-minded, and it's great because here in Arizona, a couple of my neighbors are going low carb keto, so it's very easy because we're eating the same way or they're doing fasting. Like, hey, like my neighbors 2 door down go, hey, do you want to do a 3-day fast together? Would that be fun? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Whenever you guys want to do it, let me know. We'll do it together. So things like that of just having that support. But if everyone around you is bringing home donuts and cake, and this is why we're talking about family support or social support, is so critically important.
I love the point you made. I think it was in last year's San Diego. We talked about the home being the most dangerous place, and you went really kind of wild with it. But it,
I tend to do that.
no, it was really, I mean, all the way from the food to spousal abuse, and then that tied in with a point Dave Feldman had made uh, it wasn't a question, but it was a memory from his grandmother about how he de-emphasized the role of homemaker. He believed at that point that she should be doing something. And she had a kind of come to Jesus talk with him about the importance of maintaining that home. And it clearly stuck. And that was just, I thought, the best thing I'd heard in the questions. So when I wrote that up, I said, well, we're only going to talk about Dave Feldman's question in the, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so important. It's like it's finding your role and being at peace with your role, right? If it's being a housewife or a house husband or whatever, be the best you can and know you're making an impact still. Don't feel like my life is wasted because I'm not like in the Fortune 500 company or something like that, you know?
I just remember my grandmother's one worked, but she gave piano lessons, and the other just kind of watched TV. And but the impact they had on their grandchildren was phenomenal. And I reflected on that when I heard Dave say that. But again, the importance of a safe home, a home where your children have guidance and they know that you have their back, and that's very, very important and
Yes, it's critically important. And I think
critical.
certain people, and you see it, that's why the value of going to conferences. I see these guys and I sit down and talk to Matt Phillips, who's one of the best neurologists in the world. I talk to some of the
Oh,
best
wow.
cardiologists, Brett Scher, and you see how they are at home. They take care of their family. I think the gold standard, um I mean, there's so many, but there's so many good, like Ben Bickman. Like, we're at a conference, he goes, look, we're in the middle of a group session. He goes, at 2 o'clock I have to leave because my son's I got a game and I'm not going to miss it. And we're in the middle of this deep discussion that was really critical. And he goes, okay, guys, I'll see you next time. Good luck. I'm out.
He has his priorities straight.
Yeah, and that's why he's a professor. He said, I was going to go into medicine, but I realized I'd be working all the holidays and be away and miss birthdays and all that. And we've all done that over the years, and I think the sacrifice, and I think there's a bigger picture to what you're saying too, is
Yeah,
a doctor has 10, 12, 15 minutes with you maybe, and they're not going to talk about this stuff. They can't,
they can't.
because they got to push meds and they got to figure it out, and they go by the guidelines and they go, okay, I'm going to be judged on how many meds I give you. If I don't give you a med for your hypertension for this, rather than saying, oh, why is it? Why do we have hypertension? How can we fix that? And 90% of the time we can, with lowering the insulin level down. How about cardiac disease, cardiac risk? Yeah, even if you're pre-diabetic, you're at major increased risk based on, and we look at the Women's Health Initiative. Professor Noakes went through and reanalyzed the data, and you go, metabolic disease, hypertension, diabetes by far outweighs LDL cholesterol. By far, it's not even close. And you go, okay, why are we focused on number 5 on the list rather than number 1 and number 2, which are 90% of the population?
Hmm. I listened to Nick Norowitz last night. He was on Dr. Jocker's podcast, and he did the best job of explaining LDL. And he talks fast, so I have to kind of listen to it 3 times. That's all right.
Yeah, his brain's on a different level, like Rob Sivas, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I really got it then, and my most of my metrics have really improved since I've gone on keto. Uh, I've got very low triglycerides, decent HDL, and I'm on very little statin because I'm a secondary cardiac patient. And my LDL is acceptable to my cardiologist. I think he'd want it a little lower. It's 80. So
Jeez. Yeah. Well, I think you go, okay, what are there dangers of having your LDL too low from a neurologic
yeah,
standpoint, mental function?
try
And
my
so,
brain, you know?
yeah, and sex hormones and testosterone and all these things. So you look and you go,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
how
You look at
worse?
those.
It's just like anything. Women on hormone replacement or guys on testosterone replacement. If it's physiologic, it's different than being super physiologic because you want to make all these muscles and stuff. So there's a balance. Insulin, if you have zero insulin, you die. If you have too much insulin, you die.
Yeah.
So you got to get a good balance. So sometimes we think, oh,
95,
insulin's bad. Well, it's
under
not bad.
five, under five for me. So,
Yeah, keep your insulin under 5. So as long as your A1C is fine, right? Your 3-month sugar average. So you look at those and you go, okay, because some people say, oh my gosh, I'm healthy. My insulin is at 2. Yeah, but your A1C is at 9. That is
Yeah.
not a good combination, right? You need to bring that. There's a reason. There's something wrong.
You've got to be synthetic. You've got to look at all the metrics, not just one. And but
And
like I have a relationship with my cardiologist.
and that's critically important. Just like you said, if you have a physical therapist who's not an investor, or you have a doctor who's not invested, you have to find someone who's invested in helping you get better instead of saying, "Here's a pill, here you go. We'll see you next time. Good luck." Right? Keep eating cookies, and that's fine.
I
We'll
don't
give you
know.
a drug for that. I had another question for you. Oh, I have a question for you. That conference, the first day and another lecture the next morning was all on mental health and low
Yeah.
carb keto, cutting out processed foods. Dramatic. As a professor, what do you think about this stuff?
Oh my God. I mean, my brother will be at my house for Christmas, and he's got some required viewing because he is mentally ill, and I've put him on a, a low carbohydrate diet. Now he is nowhere as compliant as I am, but he's had 2 heart attacks, and I really want him to see this stuff on mental health because then I'll translate it over to cardiac for him. And but oh, Georgia E.
And
Out of the water every time she opens her mouth.
yeah, she's amazing. She's an
She
amazing,
is an
amazing person.
amazing person, and my God, they all were terrific, and I loved Dr. Shishani from India. Oh,
Amazing. Yeah, I'm having her on
amazing.
the podcast. Yeah, she's coming on too. She's amazing. Like talking about how do we how do we get you on board with us without being judgmental and like, saying what would, because trust me, of all the, like when we talk about our character flaws, for me, the hardest person for me to deal with is someone who has like, I'll say, well, I'll tell them, well, maybe we could work on I can't do that. How about this? I can't do that. How about this? No, I'm not going to go out in the sun. It's too hot. And you go, how do I help this person? So it's frustrating until that person buys in and says, okay, I can see the end point of where we're going. So yes, I'm willing to make these changes, but how do we get them on board with that? Tro and I have discussed this behind the scenes a lot because, you always feel like, how do I fail that person? How do I get that person who's been beaten down their entire life? And, most of us who are struggling with weight, we've been beaten down by people. Oh, you do this thing for 2 weeks and you're just going to blow it again. And you can't stick to anything. And we get these, and that was kind of my talk on these footholds and strongholds where we have these strongholds that we just believe like we could just never lose weight or you can never get your sugars under control. It's too hard. Other people can do it, sure, but you can't. And how do you get that click? How do you get that person on board? And she did such a great job of talking about that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I had her sign my book. I had purchased her book after I'd heard her either on your podcast or, I mean, it's wow. So that was great. But
Yeah, so critically important. And I think
critically,
the thing in medicine is we've lost that. You have 9 minutes. How are you going to get this critical thinking? How are you going to get this? It's hard. And she showed that you can do that. Just saying, she actually pulled one of my patients up on stage and talked to her about
oh yeah, I saw
why she's failing
yeah,
and why she's struggling and like
yeah.
why are you going back to where you know it's bad for you. Like, wouldn't it be great if we could do this and get Dr. Unwin's the master of that. Both Dr. Unwins are very
Oh
good at
my God. She was just, I mean, I thought I was a good coach until I listened to her.
I know that's one of my patients kind of elbowed me, goes, okay, doc, are you listening? I'm like, yeah, I'm listening. Yeah, totally. Because there's times when you need that. You
Well,
need
it's
someone who's going to be like, look, here's the reality you're facing. Here's where your boat's going. We've got to
yeah,
fix this problem. But you have to buy. I can't do it for you. You have to buy in, and that's why I've never
yeah.
enjoyed having patients who just say, "Give me a recipe, give me a food plan and a recipe, and I'll just follow it." It's like, well, you have to know why you're doing it. You have to know this continuous glucose monitor, and once people have that on, it changes everything, and it's amazing. As a matter of fact, my new patients yesterday, their son actually got him a CGM just so they can see, and they were like, "What? What did she say?" Oh, she said, "Oh my gosh." She said, "My big vice was putting a bunch of that um, International Delight creamer in her coffee in the morning." And she goes, "I wouldn't eat till lunch," but her sugars would go off the scale high after that. So you realize, okay, do I need that, or can I put some heavy cream? Can I drink it black? Can I do something different? Just these little tweaks, especially if
Yeah,
you're not diabetic, you don't have to,
yeah.
it's not as dramatic.
But really, there's so many things you can do to grow old, and make the best of. You know, who did bit Dr. Ben? So according to Dr. Ben, I have a good 23 years left. So if I keep it up. So let's
Yeah,
see.
then you could prove them wrong, right?
Well, yeah.
You prove them wrong. Go, you said 23. I'm at 30 now, buddy. Yeah, but I
Really?
think that of having that hope is like, think of that. 23 years. What can you accomplish? How many lives can you impact? How much can you do good for the world in 23 years? Right?
Yeah.
If you didn't change what you're doing, you probably wouldn't be here now.
Oh no, I would have been dead within a year of my not having that surgery. That is pretty certain. Yeah.
So
My
what have you?
aortic valve was totally calcified.
Yeah, and all those things. And sometimes those are the things we're good at, and that's one of the things in the medical system we're really good at changing the engine. We're really good at life, like
Yeah.
end of life stuff, and getting fixing huge problems. But it would be nicer not to ever have those and never have to go through major triple bypass surgery and all that, right?
I hope I don't have to do it again, but I would prefer that than having another chemical stress test. But
Yeah, that's why they call it a stress test. It's pretty stressful.
oh, straight. But I think the key for me in growing old is again pushing my brain. And then once the physical kicked in, I've added a routine to my life. Everybody who knows me well knows how much I love the Rolling Stones. And I started deconstructing Mick Jagger's moves on the stage.
Is that right?
What does it mean to move like Jagger? And he doesn't really dance, so that was easy. See, he basically struts. He acts like a turkey. He does a whole lot of other things. I've got that down now. I have a big house, so I dance like Jagger. I'm just waiting for him to catch my video
Oh, very good. Hey,
that I
Mick, if you're
haven't made.
watching.
That I haven't made yet, but it's just kind of lying in my fantasy that he'll ask me on stage, "Oh, this old woman who is 3 years younger than me."
Yeah, right.
It's just kind
Look
of
at him go. I mean, look at him go. I mean, it's
look at him
amazing.
go. He's better
And
than he's ever been.
and other
Yeah,
people are still it was funny
yeah,
because I went to the Elton John farewell tour and he
yeah.
kind of waddled out on stage. I see him like barely get. I'm like, oh no, what did I pay money
Oh
for?
no, Elton
And then
John.
as soon as he started singing, it
Wow,
was amazing. Like it was like he
amazing,
was
like he
22
always
years
is.
old again.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just kind of, I'm finding fun things to do, and when I do a whole set, like 6 songs in a row, up and down my living room, I've got a whole lot of my circles are closing, and he uh, he just brings me joy. So that which brings you joy is good.
Awesome. Yeah, whatever it is, right? And
That's
just
it.
enjoying and you're moving your body and you're having fun and you're learning because you're deconstructing what he's doing on stage
Well,
and you
yeah,
could model it at home.
and
So
I
do you
have to translate it into my body. So it's like really a good thing for me to do in addition to my
so do you
usual.
close the shutters and the curtains
No,
or
I
you
don't
don't care,
care.
you just go?
I do. I
That's what I
just don't.
figured.
I've performed it for one friend, and my friend Suzanne. So yes, she thought I was fabulous.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm waiting for the video. You let me know. We'll put a link to it here. We'll let everyone see it. We'll make a
I have to have enough courage. That would be a real stretch for me to film that because I don't have all the nuances done. I mean, and I don't have those little hips like he does. So, but I just made myself a little list of uh I yeah, I think we've hit most of it. Don't drink and smoke. Push your brain. Be in partnership with your doctors. Have social contacts that who you value, and have a lot of meaningful activities. Again,
Yeah. And it's like, we go back
be
and
engaged in.
every talk because this is an easy one that I haven't found an exception to this. But Ben Bickman, when I asked him, like, what do I have to do to live a long time? He goes, okay, Brian, 5 things easy. And I was like, I was waiting for this 2 hour dialogue. He goes, Brian, easy, 5 things. Number one, don't be working out 18 hours of stressed out. You and I learned from that.
Yeah,
Get enough sleep. Like when you're working like
yeah,
we did, like you can't catch up on your sleep. You're
yep.
stressed. You're
After
tired.
your sleep.
And I was like, I don't think I like your rules, Ben, because I'm 0 for 2 and there's only 5. And he
Yeah,
goes, yeah, that's why doctors died before everyone else. Number 3, eat real
true.
food. Next, don't smoke or drink to excess, like you said. And next, exercise regularly. And you're doing all those things. So you go, okay,
Doing them all.
yeah, sometimes everything else is out of our control, but doing that, and I think keeping your brain active, learning all the time and all that, and I think, we have enough data now with dementia and Parkinson's and some of these diseases. If you keep your brain active and you eat a healthy diet and you watch your stress and you get your sleep and you do things you enjoy, it decreases your risk significantly of getting these horrible conditions that we all fear.
Yeah. And the only one that I sometimes don't manage too well is the stress, but that's usually worry. And worry is useless. Uh, I have to have a repeat of a medical test in 2 days, and it's been on my mind.
Hmm.
And I sometimes will awfulize. And that's what I'm working on now, is to just kind of stay present, show up for the test on Friday morning, and then we'll know.
Yeah, and you go, okay, I'm not gonna. Yeah, so many people catastrophize everything. They worry so much and stress, and uh, once they get their life, and it's funny. Like, I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, one of my patients has OCD. He's been having a lot of health struggles, but most of them are like we don't find an organic cause for that. But his OCD is so bad that he wants all this testing done. Oh, he's convinced he has heavy metal poisoning. He's convinced, and so I just talked to him yesterday, and he's doing so great. And I said, "What happened?" And he said, and he was really strict on a low carb ketogenic diet. And he said, you know what? I went on a cruise, highly, highly, highly stressed at work. And he said, I realized like when I calm my stress down, all my symptoms get better. My stomach problems, everything gets better. And he said, I ate terrible food on the cruise and I felt better. So it made me realize I don't have to be quite so strict. He's metabolically healthy. I go, you're metabolically healthy, dude. It's okay. Your insulin's at 4, your A1C is at 4.8. You're pretty dang healthy. So, and he said, yeah, just realizing that and how much like we have these when you have OCD, you have these repeating things to calm your stress down. He said, once I calm my stress down, I didn't need those other things to calm my stress down. And I think this is a huge thing about the low carb ketogenic diet when people or getting out processed food alone, whatever, that when they calm that stress level down, if you're a stress eater and you calm the stress down, guess what? You don't have to stress eat as much because you're not as stressed. And the less you stress eat, the better you do from a stress perspective. It's just like alcohol. The more you drink, the more stress you get. Right? Initially you feel better, but then it gets worse and worse and worse and snowballs. So it's all these great things. Sometimes you say, maybe I need to just step back and reassess. And do I, if I have some blueberries, sometimes is that going to make me, like someone who's strict carnivore, sometimes if they have blueberries, they feel guilty and bad. It's like, you're healthy. It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's not going to, so it's just amazing sometimes just lowering the stress level down. And we've seen it where people lower their stress and their sugars improve, even though they're eating perfect and they're trying everything else. Stress is a killer, right? And the years that we had of high stress, it takes a toll for sure. No doubt about it.
Yeah, and I liked, associate stress and sleep.
Oh, they're sisters, right?
They're just like, oh my God, they feed each other. And like the other things are, all around it. But uh, once I got my sleep really good, the stress came down a bit. And of course, I'm nowhere as stressed as I used to be. But, you still have things you need to tweak. They will always be there. But don't be afraid to grow old. For anybody who's listening, please, for my life from 65 on, it's just started to get better and better and better and better.
That's what I wanted you to have on because we need hope. We need people go, can I get healthier? If I'm hurting all the time and I'm sitting on the couch and my knees hurt every time I move. And, I think we need that reminder that yes, so many times, and I kind of joke and say it too. So I was like, okay, I'm just getting old, so I can't do this anymore. I'm getting old, so this is, something that's out of reach. But the problem is we believe that stuff when we sit on the couch, like you said, with the remote control and watch TV instead of saying, well, what can I learn today? Listen, I don't know the rules of pickle. Like, as a matter of fact, I was telling my wife, instead of watching these crime shows or something, why don't we learn the rules of pickleball? Then when we go play, like we know what we're doing at least, or, learn something new or learn how to dance like Mick Jagger or whatever.
Yeah, or whoever you like, move. And it has to be a complex thing. That's why the dancing is good because you have to translate the cognitive into the body. And we are so disconnected from our heads to our bodies and our hearts. And anything that just kind of pulls that all together.
Well, and you could say this, that Mick Jagger could save your life in this way. The number, I just interviewed, asked nurse Cindy, who's amazing, and she's been around a while too. And she says that she gets down on the floor and gets up and gets down on the floor and gets
Yeah,
up.
I heard that. Yeah, I heard
Yeah,
that.
and it really is like, it makes you realize, because she says, look, the number one cause of admission to nursing home is that you cannot get out of the chair by yourself, or you can't get yourself off the floor. You're not safe at home anymore. So if
No.
you're dancing like Mick Jagger, that's your brain, your creativity, your coordination, right? You're using those muscles, you're using those nerves. Sitting on the couch, you forget. It's like astronauts have to learn how to walk again when they get back from just being in weightlessness all the time. So our seniors, it's a huge thing, just being able to move and enjoy it and have fun. Make it a fun thing too. If you enjoy doing that and you're learning, it's so
Right.
much more
Oh, it
fun
is
than just
really.
saying, okay, I'm going to walk for 5 miles and on a treadmill. It's a lot different than seeing
Yeah,
your neighbors and
that
go,
doesn't do it for me. Yeah,
seeing
that
birds and different things outside. It makes a difference.
oh, there's beautiful nature around where I live, just the birds and the plants, and it's very nice. Have to do it very early in the morning or it doesn't get done because of the heat.
So, Doc, I think we've covered it all. What's
I
life's
think
best
we did
medicine?
too.
What's life's best medicine for you now?
Well, life's best medicine, I said in my last podcast, was love. And now I think that's very, very, very important that we can see love in each other because everybody's doing the best they can. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah, but today, now I just say it's authenticity. It's just, I don't have to prove myself. Just be who I am. I'm slightly outrageous. I'll flirt with people at the convention. I'm inappropriately too old for every single one of them. And I don't worry about it. I'm having fun.
Yeah, I think just
Not insulting them.
I think that's a lesson too for the rest of us. Like, my wife loves to dance at weddings and all this stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. And I do it because it's, we have fun. We always have fun. We always have a blast, but it's not my first nature of doing those kind of things. So sometimes stepping out of your comfort zone and doing stuff like that, meeting people, like you could go to, literally you could go to the conference, just sit there and just take notes and never engage with people. Right. And so that's the benefit, I think. I mean, there's a difference and Doug says this too about being there and immersed with people, because I've learned a lot. I don't know if you were there when Jules asked a question. I'm gonna get him on the podcast, but type 1 bipolar put into remission with lifestyle, and actually listen to the Low Carb MD podcast. It was great that we could meet him, and he introduced me to some other things I never thought about that helped him from a supplement standpoint. So I'm like, let me look into this, right? If we're struggling with mental health, I'll take every tool I can to help you. And so, there's some supplements and some things that really helped him and some other people. And go, okay, let me learn that. And I'm having the doctor who wrote the book on that come on the podcast. So whatever we can do, because if you combine that with a ketogenic diet, maybe that's better than just the ketogenic diet alone. Maybe, the supplement helps if people aren't going to change their diet, whatever it is. And so you kind of, um, I think what we talked about before we came on is remaining open-minded and learning and saying, okay, I never heard of this stuff before. I don't know about Reiki, or I don't know about acupuncture. Let me learn from someone who does it or people who benefit it and see if it's that's a reasonable thing to do or not, right? But it really comes to clinical outcomes and all that. So I appreciate so much you joining me. How do we track you down if people want to track you down and pick
Basically,
on you?
you can find me on Facebook under my name, JoAnn McManamy. I'm probably going to take myself off X because of its negativity. And I'm on Instagram under Dr. McManamy.
Oh, awesome. I'd have to get on Instagram a little more. I haven't really been over there
Instagram,
much.
yeah, Instagram is nice. And I go on X only once a day. And I'm usually, doesn't make me feel good. So therefore, I won't be doing it longer. So don't look for me.
It's funny, somehow like I have so many friends and so many things I love, and I just look past the negativity and go, okay, I forget, I'm not engaged. Certain people, I look at their name and I go like, okay, I'm not going to look at this. But there's so much good information there. It's hard. It's just like life, you go
No, you
through and
can. You have to go through the weeds.
yeah, you have to go through the weeds and not let the weeds strangle you out,
Yeah,
beat
yeah.
your humanity out of you. But I think there's so much good, and I look forward to learning from you over the years. We'll have you come back when you're 90 and explain
Oh,
what
I
it's
got to
like
come
being
back
90.
before then. I was on
No, no, we'll have you back before that for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's been 2.5 years, and I listened to everything you You
You poor soul. You poor soul.
I
But I
didn't
appreciate it. Yeah, I
I
appreciate
didn't
it.
listen this morning because I was listening to Nick Norwitz again.
Oh yeah, it's a good one. This morning,
Yeah,
people
yeah,
who haven't
about
listened, go
the
back.
women and the menopause stuff.
Yeah, the
That
menopause,
ship
and
has
we talk a
sailed.
lot about the same things. We're talking about stress,
Yeah,
sleep,
yeah,
interacting with other people, and the importance of social
yeah.
engagement and positivity and all that kind of stuff. So I really enjoyed that one. So I enjoyed this. So thank you so much for I'm glad we connected over there. We get you on. And
Thank
again,
you.
I want to thank you for your positive spirit, giving people hope, encouragement, and saying, okay, I'm only 68, I'm only 74. Maybe I can make some changes and not just say, okay, just sit on the couch, mom. It's really, really
Don't sit on
critical
the
stuff.
couch, Mom. Don't sit on the couch. Take those trips. Read those books. Watch intelligent television when you do. And like I always love my British mysteries, but
Oh yeah.
oh,
And dance like Jagger, right?
and dance like Jagger.
All right, Doc. Thanks so much for joining me.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information. And hopefully this helps you. Have a great day, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your support.